Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your sun in Capricorn and your moon in Aries. Both of these signs are cardinal signs, and in astrology, they square off to one another, which means that they form a tense angle. However, based on your own personal data, this may or may not be true. If your sun and moon are too far apart, they will not make that kind of contact. And yet, I really, at the end of the day, don't care all that much about official squares or official trines, because the the clash that you would see with the square that is connected to these two signs, you could see simply by looking and knowing about the signs themselves and what they represent. So, for instance, Capricorn is traditional, it's an earth sign. Aries is rebellious and it's a fire sign. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so it represents infancy. It represents the beginning of life. It's connected to the beginning of springtime. Obviously, the Northern Hemisphere really represents this, but that's the symbolism. And Capricorn is a winter sign. It is one of the last four signs of the zodiac, and so it represents the wisdom of the winter signs, the final four signs of each element. And so there's a lot of differences when it comes to the attitudes and the goals of both of these signs. But speaking of goals, the sun sign is really connected with that. That's what you wish to become in this lifetime. And depending on how self-aware you are, I would even say age-wise, because I think when you're younger, you're more susceptible to the influence of parents and society. You're going to perhaps go in a different direction and eventually wind up where you're meant to be. And for Capricorn, this can be, in general, I think especially the case because you tend to value elders. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and that is all about old age. So Capricorn people tend to be maybe even more respectful or holding esteem for people who have been around the block a few times. And you tend to be traditional. And so whatever has come before to you is probably the most viable versus something that is untested, something that is new. But Aries is a sign that would almost value the untested more because of the newness factor. Aries is a sign that is it's like the child at Christmas time, an hour after opening their gifts. They're like, okay, what next? After all of this build-up, Aries is ready for their next goal to conquer and their next new project to initiate. There's an initiating type of a vibe for Aries in all of the cardinal signs. So that would also include Capricorn, but there's more of a cautious nature to Capricorn. Aries is ruled by Mars, and Mars is the god of war, and there's an impatience with Mars. And you will sense this with people with a prominent Aries, that they, if you talk to them, they'll kind of bottom line you and be like, okay, There's like a terse quality where they just get very impatient and they want you to kind of cut to the chase. I'm I'm one of those people. I get a little flustered when I'm dealing with that type of person because I have Taurus rising. I've had people, write to me here on YouTube and say I sped up the video like twice or something like that so that it was talking faster because they're claiming that I talk too slowly, um, which that would piss me off if it didn't amuse me so much. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like something that an Aries person would do in general, is just like speed up videos, anything. Now, if somebody has a moon in Aries, are they an Aries person? Yes, in the sense that all of the prominent positions, you could say all of the inner planets, but even the moon sign, that might not be considered an inner planet. It's the moon can be any sign. And that is one of those very influential placements. So sometimes the sun and the moon, if you're looking at a particular sign, they can seem almost interchangeable, but they're not, because there are going to be slight differences. In this case, the type of personality that you may display, and of course we have to look at the rising sign as well, but just looking at the sun and moon, is that you may be the kind of person, because the moon can be your emotional nature. It can be your, what you need to feel safe in life. And the funny thing is that when it's in Aries, you feel unsafe when something is safe. That's how I interpret it. Because Aries loves to take risks. Aries does not want a predictable life. Now, I'm saying that as a general thing. The moon sign isn't the same as the sun sign, that is for sure. But I can just use the term Aries, talking about your personality with the moon in Aries. And you might be the kind of person where when something is too predictable, and that could include a job or a relationship, then you have one foot out the door. Obviously, when we're looking at astrological interpretations, when we're combining different factors, we have to combine it as much as possible, because you have other placements that are personal, like you have your Mercury, you have your Venus and Mars. And with a Capricorn sun, you could easily have some of these inner planets in Sagittarius and or Aquarius. Both of those signs are masculine signs. The masculine signs, the fire and the air signs, are very outward in their projection of energy. So that means that they tend to be more extroverted. They tend to be more assertive versus passive. The feminine is passive, the water and the earth. And that's not to say, that you take these things 100% literally, because a person with the sun in Capricorn in their, let's say, their business life, maybe they do sometimes come across as a cutthroat because they're just so exacting, and they don't give any quarter. They stand their ground when they're trying to make a deal or what have you. There's a very resolute quality to a sign like Capricorn. And that can be, I don't think you can say it's good or bad. It just is what it is. But with Aries, there is more, and if you have a lot of this influence with the air and fire with the other placements, you can be one of these people who doesn't really resemble your sun sign that much. I have had clients who have a sign that's more on the conservative and muted side of things, like a Capricorn, like a Taurus, or whatever. I'm I mean, I can't say specifically what signs they were, but I know that they were even like a Cancer or something like that, where they're not really, they might even be kind of shy, or they're not the kind of people that draw attention to themselves, Virgo. And then you look at some of their other planets, and they're all masculine. They have, the moon in Sagittarius. They have, if they're a Capricorn, well, let's just say that they're like a Virgo, and they have all these inner planets in Leo. Maybe they have Aries rising and or Libra rising, and they're just very social and all of that. So you never can tell how a person is going to assimilate these influences or kind of integrate them until you look at their chart, or if you know them well, you already know how they behave. So what can be that clash that can represent the sun in Capricorn and the moon in Aries? One thing is with Aries is the need for autonomy and freedom. Those two words are kind of similar, but there's a slight nuance, a little bit of a difference there, because when I say autonomy, I mean that you have the ability to kind of be the captain of your ship. And usually this will really mean the person who is running their own business versus working for somebody else. With cardinal signs, there's more of a comfort in giving orders and taking orders. However, when the sun is in Capricorn, this will be mitigated because the person, since the sun is the main influence, the person already respects authority, because Saturn represents authority figures, and the 10th house that Capricorn Saturn rules. So there's not as much of a rebellious quality within Capricorn alone. There can even be this sense of like, pay your dues, or pay your respects to those who have come before, and really have a reverence for people who, have been on the job for 40 years and they've worked their way up. And there's a connection with hierarchy with Capricorn, because Capricorn represents systems, it represents architectures. That's one of the professions that Capricorn people can be interested in, is architecture, but it represents the skeletal system and the, all kinds of structures. This is why when Pluto was in Capricorn for these past 15 years, it was kind of acting as a wrecking ball for all of these structures, these institutions that are breaking down before our very eyes, that we thought were so solid and so permanent. And, we're still just in that early phase of seeing the results of all of this, because, somehow things have been kept together, maybe by Gorilla Glue, but, it will start to disintegrate more and more. And so this is one of the things that can be quite a dilemma for you, because the moon representing your feelings can really be a driving force sometimes, because especially when it's in a sign like Aries, because the fire signs are emotional. They're not emotional in the same way as the water signs. They're more passionate than what we would call emotional. They're more, they get riled up about certain concepts, certain ideas and ideals. And so you may feel this sense of like the status quo is not what you are interested in. So that's where the square can really cause an impasse because the person feels torn. And they find it very hard to integrate their desires and their goals because the safety that you seek is in adventure. The least safe you feel is in probably like a 9-to-5 job where you can look forward to doing the same thing for the next 40 years. That just, on the emotional level, that is not going to enthuse you at all. But if you are someone who hasn't really gotten to this point, maybe you haven't had any kind of level of spiritual awakening yet, and so you're still plugged into the matrix and you're still believing what you're told or feeling that what you were conditioned is really the truth, you may proceed, and yet you may find that it comes out as anger because the moon in Aries can be very volatile emotionally. Definitely Capricorn is not a volatile sign. Capricorn is an earth sign, so earth signs, like air signs, tend to be more detached. The fire and the fire and the water signs are the ones that tend to be more emotional. But I would say that the fire signs are the ones that might lose their temper more than the water signs. The water signs are more likely to cry than to start screaming at the top of their lungs about something. The moon can be your mother, so you may have had a mother who was emotionally volatile. As a sun in Capricorn, this may have mortified you if she was a rageaholic or otherwise hot-headed and didn't have much self-control, and she just would do it anywhere. That could have been very embarrassing to somebody who is a sun in Capricorn, because you're like, what will the neighbors think? What will my friends think? What will society think? There's always that kind of tendency to want to conform to the standards of society, but with the moon in Aries, you have that wild side to yourself. And depending on if your Mars is in Sagittarius and even Aquarius, even though Aquarius is an air sign, it still can give the person who is very independent and unwilling to just go along with the program. In terms of professions, you may find the first thing that came into my mind as a teacher, because I always think of Capricorns as being mentors. So that implies that you are, to me, a mentor. A lot of times there's like an age difference, but that's not true across the board. But like wanting to be, even like working with children, I think people with the moon in fire energy have their own inner child alive and well. And so they may be very creative and playful. And this is not the kind of adjective that we would use to describe the sign of Capricorn as playful. Capricorns can be overly serious, to be quite honest. But with this moon in Aries, you may be more spontaneous than the average Capricorn person. You may be more, rebellious and less of a stuffed shirt, less, talking about spontaneity, the Capricorn type of vibe is very planned out, nothing left to chance. So for you to just like kind of make up plans on the fly of what you want to do on the weekend, for instance, that is probably not like the average Capricorn. But for you, it could be the way you like to roll, because you know that emotionally you tend to live in the moment, and you can have whims that can take you in and having you do different things. So um, that favors the type of profession where you're working with young people, because you can tap into that inner child very easily, and even but at the same time be an authority figure that the children respect. And so, this could be a good thing for you, but it can also be a gift that you give those who you are teaching and modeling a certain type of behavior that you want them to kind of conform to. The other kind of, you would probably excel in many different things. So I'm not going to go too much into that, but I wouldn't be, I wouldn't even be surprised if the military would appeal to some of you, because first of all, like I said, Aries are ruled by Mars, the god of war. But then on top of that, the sun in Capricorn can indicate somebody who, one of these structures. The military is a form of structure, and you may, some people, I think this was true decades ago, not necessarily true these days, that people looked at the military as a career that would span, their adult life. Now, I think it's more like they're going in to get certain benefits, but they're not really loyal to that. And, I'm going to be wrong, with some people's motivations, so I apologize. I'm not meaning to kind of dismiss anybody who signed up for the military and didn't do it just because they were trying to get financial aid, but for college, but they really, wanted to serve. I could see this combination doing it because, again, Mars is the god of war, so there could be kind of this warrior spirit with the emotions, where the person is very there's a sense of duty with Capricorn too. So the person may feel like, I owe this country so much, so I'm going to give back. I can even think of somebody who's a coach, or by extension, like a personal trainer, something like that, where, because first of all, since Capricorn is an earth sign, the earth signs are connected to the physical matter. So we could even talk about the body, and Mars rules your moon sign. So this idea of, exercise, there's a physicality with Mars. And also the coaching, I've just observed in my private life that people that I know who, who are coaches, they tend to have cardinal signs in their personal points, because it's just like a natural thing for people who are cardinal signs to not only give orders, but also give encouragement and want to kind of model this behavior of the person who is successful to others, and say, if I can do it, you can do it. In terms of love, is this combination romantic? Well, I would definitely not say that Capricorn is a romantic sign. That's one of those things that is, I would say, like, if they are, it's because of the Aries, or if it's some other person who has different placements, it would be more likely if the person has Libra or Taurus or Pisces or whatever, like for the moon sign or something. But in your case, because it's Aries, yeah, Aries is a little bit rough around the edges, so it's not necessarily very delicate poetry, but it can be very full of passion, and you may just be so like taken by the particular person that you're wanting to just move things along very quickly. So you have to be careful, because the emotional nature of somebody with the moon in Aries is always forward seeking and always like um just very hard to pin down, I would say. Very active. But it's going to help you in the long run, because there is that dynamic quality of Aries. You know, if you just have the Capricorn, and let's say your moon was in Capricorn too, it would be it wouldn't be as entertaining as this combination. And I really feel that the Aries moon plays such a big part in that. I think that Capricorns are basically interested in family, in starting families and things like that. Capricorn and Saturn can connect to the father element, or influence, archetype, and that can be a motivating factor for you to even get with someone, is that you're thinking about, I want to have children with this person, or if you're planning on adopting, I want to adopt with this person, rather than someone who is maybe marrying primarily for love. And you may say, well, love is the ultimate. But when you enter into a legal agreement, especially, you know, referencing the the marriage and things like that, what that can do is it can make you want to create a structure, which is that Capricorn desire, that has to do with your significant other. And so that tends to include future generations. So that may be a very practical reason, but that's why I'm saying you have to look at other placements, because in some cases you may rebel against that need to be practical and just be totally into that Aries energy and feel a sense of being reluctant to settle down. And nobody can tell you what to do. You know, they need to take care of their own lives. And you probably are a very busy person, an accomplished person, and that makes it easier to tune out people whose opinions are not all that important in the grand scheme of things. Okay, that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.